Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jill Marini, and I'm the Director of Early Learning and School Age Programs for the YWCA Hartford region. Welcome to another episode of YWLIVE, Lunch, and Learn. After more than 3 months of closures due to COVID-19, the state has been in a gradual reopening since May. As the governor continues to emphasize social distancing, face masks, and the use of other PPP to ensure the safety of everyone, children and families are in the middle of enjoying a heated summer at beaches and parks throughout the state. For today's YWLIVE Lunch and Learn, we're coming to you from my porch in my backyard. I thought that it was a appropriate setting to welcome Katie Dykes, the Commissioner of Connecticut's Department of Energy and Environmental Protection. Commissioner Dykes was nominated by Governor Ned Lamont to serve as a Commissioner of DEEP and was confirmed on February 20th, 2019. Commissioner Dykes has had a stellar career in public utilities, regulatory affairs, green technology initiatives, and environmental affairs. She was Deputy General Counsel for the White House Council on Environmental Quality and as a legal advisor to the General Counsel for the U.S. Department of Energy. A graduate of Yale University School of Law, Commissioner Dykes' favorite role, we believe, is being a mom. Welcome, Commissioner Dykes.
Thank you so much, Jill. It's such a pleasure to be with you today.
We're outside, we're enjoying the fresh air, and we're just going to have a conversation on my back porch, you and I.
I'm delighted.
So I shared a little bit about your background, and believe me, it's very impressive. Can you take us on a brief walk down memory lane about where you grew up and what made you decide the career path that you're on now and how you became the Commissioner of DEEP?
Oh, wow. Well, that's a great question. So I actually didn't grow up in Connecticut. I grew up in Charleston, West Virginia. And if you know anything about West Virginia, it's an incredibly beautiful place, lots of mountains, and lots of opportunities to get outdoors. My mom, I think, gets a lot of credit for where I've ended up and what I've had the opportunity to work on in my career. She's a science major herself. She was a biology and a chemistry teacher, and also taught environmental science. And so and she taught actually at my school. I had her for class, if you can believe it. It's a really small school. But she was always just really active about getting us out, out in the woods, out hiking, local state forests, and had a passion in her, career and her teaching about protecting the environment and environmental stewardship. And so I think that definitely rubbed off. And so I was really interested in pursuing a career where I could be able to, make a difference. Public service is just such an incredible opportunity. And I've been so fortunate to get to work on some of these really important issues and be able to be working directly with members of the community as we do that. I think nothing, ties us closer together than the environment. And it affects everything. The air that we breathe, we all share, and having clean water, and especially clean energy options for our communities is so important. Where I grew up in West Virginia, it's cold country, and I got very motivated to get involved in environmental protection, just based on things that I observed and the impacts of coal mining on communities in my home state. And it's been really exciting, even though I now have the privilege to get to work on these issues in Connecticut. And I've lived here more years than anywhere else now since most of my adult life. But contributing to all the work that we've been doing here in Connecticut to grow more solar and offshore wind and clean energy sources is helping provide a lot of these solutions so that we can shift to cleaner energy solutions. And I know that the work we're doing here is a model for the rest of the country, and is making a real impact. And so it's really great to be a part of that as well.
It's exciting when you get to do what you love. I can attest to that. So you can hear that in your words. So do you want to share a little bit about what day-to-day work looks like as a Commissioner of DEEP?
Or are we talking about pre or post pandemic?
Let's just talk about whatever's real right now and today, because it is very relevant to the work you do.
Well, so it's funny because today is actually the first day that I've been back in my office. This is my office at Deep headquarters here in Hartford. And I have not sat in this chair since March 9th or so. So it feels a little bit like a time capsule. You know, I've been working from home over the last couple of months. So it's been a real juggling act of, I have three small children, ages 3, 5, and 7. And so like many folks, we've been doing the homeschooling and working full time, my husband and I both. So it's been a really interesting time. But I think just to the work itself, whether I'm at home or I'm here in the office, you know, Deep is such an incredible agency. We have kind of uniquely so many different aspects of environmental protection and conservation and clean energy deployment under one roof. And so my day-to-day in this job means getting to work on a huge variety of different issues and in areas where Deep is making an impact and supporting communities in so many different ways. Whether it's just to give you a couple examples of things that I've worked on just over the last 24 hours. It includes highlighting composting and more sustainable ways for us to dispose of our municipal solid waste as an opportunity for us to move away from incinerating trash, which, you know, we have a large trash incineration facility in the city of Hartford that is one of the largest sources of point sources of air pollution that affects communities in Hartford. And we're working hard to start to move away from incineration of waste here in Hartford and move towards more sustainable options. Have been on calls and working with our terrific team that support our over 100 different state parks and forests and outdoor recreation areas about how we can ensure that we're providing access to things like swimming and beaches that are in high demand with the warm weather and a lot of folks looking to get outside, and how we can do that safely and encourage people to wear masks and follow other important guidelines. Talking with our energy team about all the terrific work that they've been doing. We're supporting hundreds of different small businesses around the state who are delivering energy efficiency services. Even during the pandemic, we found a way to continue to support that work, which helps families lower their energy bills and provides great clean energy jobs for many people around the state to be part of that solution. That's just a sample of a couple of different things, but it is very diverse, very broad. I love that variety. And I am just, but the best part, of course, is the incredible team that we have, the over, you know, hundreds of men and women who are really dedicated to protecting the environment and supporting outdoor recreation and clean energy. And I just, it makes it so exciting to come to work every day.
And that makes the work not work. You said something that kind of leads into our next conversation. You said we all share the air we breathe, which is huge right now, right?
Yes.
So we can only imagine what the past few months have been like to lead the state during the most significant health and economic crisis in our history. Can you kind of discuss the impact of the coronavirus from your position and how you and your office have dealt with this issue?
Yes. You know, Connecticut, unfortunately, we just based on where we are geographically, we have a lot of air that blows into our state, even that is really unsafe to breathe. We have some of the worst air quality in the country because air that's blowing in to our borders has high levels of air pollutants in it even before it reaches Connecticut. And then, of course, we have a transportation system, you know, cars and trucks that are burning fossil fuels, and that's a major source of our air pollution, and really especially impacts families that are living along those transportation corridors, along I-84, along I I-95, and so air pollution is a huge challenge for our state. And of course, the reason we care so much about air pollution is because it impacts public health. We have, unfortunately, it's not a rank of distinction. Many of our cities in Connecticut rank on the top 100 worst asthma cities in the country. In fact, Hartford and New Haven are in the top 20 of that ranking, and so that has a profound impact. My sister actually is a physician's assistant at a community health clinic here in Hartford, and we compare notes a lot. She sees a lot of families, a lot of kids coming in who are really struggling to breathe, struggling with asthma, families who have to take time off of work in order to, get access to the healthcare that their kids need to be able to breathe safely. And it's always, it's interesting to compare notes because we're both working on the same problem. She's providing care for folks, and here at our department, we're trying to work hard to get some clean transportation options out there, to get more people taking public transit, more people taking, we're making a big shift to electric vehicles, which is a great way to reduce the amount of air pollution that's coming from our transportation sources, as well as promoting biking and other forms of commuting that are cleaner. And looking for ways that we can move away from some polluting power plants then this example I gave you of the trash incinerator is one that, again, all of these things together can clean up our air and provide for healthier kids and healthier families in our state, which is what we want. And by the way, also contribute to helping us fight climate change. So we're really excited that we're continuing to make progress on this front. I know that there's a lot of interest in air quality during the pandemic, not just because we know that many communities that are disproportionately impacted by air pollution and respiratory illness have been disproportionately affected by COVID. So it's really highlighted those health and economic and racial disparities in our public health system. But it's also highlighted, as we saw lots of folks staying home, especially in the spring. We saw our air quality improving, and so that was really eye-opening to see how quickly that our air quality improved as we saw fewer cars on the road. I will say, Jill, I would never prescribe a pandemic as a solution for air pollution. But what I tell folks is that it really, it's been a moment just for us to have a glimpse of what our air quality will look like, can look like, and will look like as when we make more progress on cleaner transportation and power generation solutions in the future. So we're even more dedicated to making those transitions and which we know will provide disproportionate benefit to communities that have been impacted for so long.
Yeah, I don't think any of us want to capitalize on what COVID has provided, but I think that it's provided us all with insights on how things can be done differently, more efficiently. And I'm sure that organizations around the country are looking at how things have been done and can we continue to do them for the betterment of the community or the people we serve. So I think that, being reflective during this time is important, and using the test. You didn't set this test out, but it's been given to you and now you have the results. So it's important to use that information.
No doubt. No doubt. People are doing things that they never did before. We've seen, complete changes in how we work and how we live, behavior changes, wearing masks, all these types of things. And I think I'm hopeful that it's given us all like a renewed sense of how we can adapt and try new things. And I think some of these small behavior changes or the willingness to try something new, like driving an electric car, if you've never tried it, is actually, they're super fun to drive. But for some folks, it may just feel like, I don't know what that is, or I don't know where I would charge it. Thinking about getting an energy efficiency audit which helps us avoid having to build more dirty power plants. These are the kinds of things that people just, I think, are waking up and more attentive to these types of impacts. They're more thoughtful about how our communities are connected, and racial injustice and health disparities, and how many of our communities that include many folks who are going to work in those essential roles that our economy depends on, are suffering from these disproportionate impacts. And I think, and I'm hopeful that people are such a profound impact.
I think we've been given a gift, and I think we all need to look at it from a personal perspective. What was going through your mind? Like, I know what was going through my mind when we were talking about the shutdown. I was like, but as a personal perspective, what was going through your mind, and what was the conversation around your family dinner table when this was all happening?
Oh, yeah. It's interesting. I think if you're going to go through a pandemic, the best person to be is a 3-year-old. My youngest, for him, I think it's been a joy to get to have that time with my kids at home. And I do recall that last day when I had an inkling, just based on what we were hearing and what we were learning here at work, that this was going to be something of a long duration. That we were just on the brink of what was going to be a very, very significant emergency response that was going to go on for a long time. I'm used to emergency response work that, it's a hurricane, it's a storm, a bad one, we could have, power interruption for a week or so or something, clearing trees, that sort of thing. And then we're back on our merry way. This is just, no one has any memory of anything that's this long. I had a sense that this was going to be, for quite some time. And I remember, just putting my 3-year-old to bed. And of course, for him, he's thinking, oh, it's a stay-at-home day tomorrow. Mommy, daddy are going to be home. This is great. And so I think through all this time, I mean, even though there's a lot of anxiety, there's a lot of fear, there's a lot of concern. You have family members, friends who are impacted by the virus or who've lost their jobs. I mean, there's just a lot of challenges that people are going through, and having that time with my kids, in the mix has been refreshing to kind of keep the focus on the beautiful weather, the time outside, having a break to tie somebody's shoe and, ride a bike, and it just brings you back to the present. And I think that's really been a joy. But yeah, I think it's like many, I again working full time, and then also especially at the beginning of the pandemic, managing 3 kids at home. It was like, I have no idea how we're going to do this, but we make it work. So,
right.
Yeah.
So we're now in the middle of the summer, and families are coming out of the quarantine, or the queue, as some people are calling it, and they're going to beaches and parks and attempting to have some kind of summer fun and normalcy, while keeping in mind the need for social distancing and doing their part not to spread corona. Can you please give us an overview of what is happening across the state for families, and what have you observed with families going to the beaches, parks, and other outdoor activities to experience nature?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, Jill, right away back in March, when the stay home, stay safe message went out, and governor was asking folks to be at home. I talked with the governor, and because the question was, well, what do we do about parks? And he's a big hiker, and he loves to get outdoors. And he said, Katie, he's like, we have to provide something for people to do. And based on what the public health experts are saying, being outside and out in the woods, you're away from other people. This is probably the safest thing people can do. And the governor, he really understood that not just for physical health, but for mental health as well. Being outdoors, spending just a little bit of time in nature, or going out fishing, lots of these different activities and pastimes. That connection with nature, that time outside, is very, very powerful for not just physical, but mental health, and just getting a break, and helping reduce anxiety levels. So we saw, Jill, 100% increase in the month of March in trail use around the state.
Wow.
Which was crazy. We saw parks that would rarely fill up and reach capacity in a given summer, fill up and reach capacity in the month of March, before we had leaves on the trees. It was an explosion of interest in getting outdoors. And that was really exciting. It was challenging because obviously we wanted to make sure that we were getting messages out to folks about how to be safe when they're outdoors, maintaining 6 feet of distance, bringing your mask, wearing your mask when you're out at a park. But this is what we prepare, and this is what we live for. This is our mission. And it was great to see so many people rediscovering and reconnecting with the terrific state parks that we have around the state. We have a program called Passport to Parks. Lots of folks may not be aware of it. It's this modest charge on vehicle registrations, provides funding for us to provide all these services and amenities at the parks. And that means that with that program, we were able to stop charging for admission and for parking at many of our really popular parks. We just stopped charging Connecticut residents. And so that's enabled us to provide really broad access for folks to come and enjoy the parks. As the weather's gotten warmer, Jill, of course, folks don't just want to hike, they want to go to the beach. And so that's been a really positive part of our summer. We have lovely, wonderful shoreline parks, and they've been really popular. Some things that we've been doing in order to help keep people safe, because it's important that you social distance when you go to the beach, is that we've lowered the parking capacity at many of our shoreline parks. It unfortunately means that we can't accommodate as many people as we would in normal times, but we do that to keep visitors safe and keep them comfortable. We want to have the visitor levels be at such a number that folks can maintain at least 15 feet of distance between themselves on the beach and another group on the beach. But the most important thing that people can do if they're planning to come to the beach is to bring your mask. I think some folks have gotten the message that, or maybe gotten the understanding that if you're outside, you don't really need a mask. And that's not the case. We want people wearing masks. You don't need to wear it when you're swimming. You don't need to wear it if you're sitting on your beach blanket with members of your household and more than 6 feet away from anyone else. But pretty much any time else, if you're at the beach, you should have the mask on. It's just something that, you might get a little funny tan line, but it's a small price to pay for all the progress that we've achieved in beating back this virus and getting to the infection levels that we have right now, which are the envy of the country. So, in order to be able to allow, continue with our progress, reopen, providing school in the fall, we know we have things that we can do. We can do our part at the beaches to wear that mask, even though you're outside.
Right. I agree completely. So since the 4th of July weekend, have some of the beaches closed, or any of them remain closed? And if so, is the state going to gradually reopen them for families and visitors?
Right. So we do what we call capacity closures, Jill. So that means that when a park like Hammonasset or Rocky Neck, when they hit that parking capacity limit, that lower parking capacity limit for the day, then we will close the gates for new visitors coming in. And then but the park will reopen the following day. So that's how we're managing it. And we actually launched this new tool I'd love for more folks to know about. It's called What's Open Outdoors. It's a website. So if you go to portal.ct.gov/What's Open Outdoors, you can get real-time updates on those capacity closures. So we encourage folks, if you want to enjoy a beach day, aim for a weekday if you can, or if you're going on the weekend, go really early, and you can look at that page and it just confirm what's open, and have a backup plan too. If the place that you want to go is closed, there's lots of other. We have over 100 different parks across the state. We have one within 15 minutes drive of everybody in the state. So even if you find that Hammonasset is closed, for example, there's lots of other options for you to get out and enjoy.
Yeah, I think it's important. I don't think I felt normal till I got outside for the first time. And then I was like, I don't have to be in my house. I can be outside in the backyard. So I think it's important for us to be outside. I just wanted to say we want to hear from our guests. So if anybody has any questions, go ahead and post them in a live session and they'll shoot them over to us and I can ask Commissioner Dykes. This flows right into the next question. So how our audiences may be thinking, okay, so how do you manage the cars? How do you manage the flow of traffic? How do you manage the number of people on the beach? And also, is there concern about people coming in from other states to use our beaches?
Yeah, those are great questions. So the best tool that we have to manage, traffic and congestion around the park is just getting that message out for folks to, check that website, the What's Open Outdoors website, to not, because if we can avoid someone driving down to a park that's closed, that's a positive. And again, choosing those less popular times, weekdays, that sort of thing, also provides for less likely the lower likelihood of folks, getting stopped at the gate and finding the park is something that we enjoy, having to turn people away. We want to provide a really positive experience for folks. So just letting people know about those busy times. The other thing that's really important is for folks not to park. If you find the park is closed, don't park across the street or on a side street, and it puts our capacity levels than they should be. And so that's one of the areas we want to let folks know that you could be fined or ticketed for parking outside and walking in. That's the not so fun part, but we do have out-of-state visitors who come to our parks. I know those numbers have not been any different than they are in normal years. The governor and our public health commissioner are advising and continuing to update that list of states where we are asking visitors from the states to quarantine for 14 days. So we're continuing to get the word out and advise people about that. It's in general, I would say the vast majority of our visitors are careful for everyone's awareness and we're working really hard. It's been a very stressful time for many of them. They're essential workers, right? When you think about it, they've got, they're juggling all the things that everyone else is in terms of, elder care and child care, while they've been reporting to work in the parks the whole time. So just being courteous, if you're in a conversation with our staff, they're doing their best. They want to provide great visitor experience for folks. And this is a really unusual time. I think a lot of folks have that, the anxiety levels are a little higher than they normally are. And so, they're doing their best, and they want everyone to be safe. And we're always so appreciative of folks who are, just being gracious and courteous and understanding about, when we need to tell folks, hey, the park's closed, come back another time. It's like, it's not fun to hear that, but we're doing these things to keep people safe.
Yeah, I think kindness is the best way to go these days.
Yeah.
We're going to switch over to nature for a moment. We're going to talk about the black bears. So there has obviously been increasingly interaction with people and black bears in Connecticut, and they're leading to unprecedented levels of complaints and requests for help. The Connecticut Department of Energy and Environmental Protection Agency announced Tuesday. So your department has received more reports of bears entering homes this year and than any other previous years. I live in Marlborough. So there are always on our Facebook page, we saw a bear on this road, we saw a bear on that road. So what is your department doing to address this?
You know, bears are magnificent creatures. There's just nothing quite like seeing a bear, I mean, it's a good friend of mine described an encounter. I mean, it's magical. It's so exciting. It's so incredible when you see these magnificent creatures out in the world. And but we have the bear population in Connecticut is expanding. It's been expanding for a number of years, and this has been a trend. And so it's really, really important that we get the word out for folks about the dangers of habituating bears. So when I say habituating bears, the thing that really concerns us is when bears begin, if they find that there's access to food sources in and around residential communities, for example, they're going to become attracted to those food sources, and they're going to lose their fear of humans. And then we're going to see bears beginning to have more conflicts with humans, and that can lead to a dangerous situation, both for our human communities and for the bears themselves. So we've been encouraged, over the last couple of months, actually, we've seen an increase, a fairly significant increase in these human-bear conflicts. Just in the month of through July of 2020, so just in this year to date, we've had more reports of bears entering homes than in any previous year. So we've had 25 different circumstances where bears were entering homes. And the reason, that's an example of habituation and something that's really concerning for us. So we've been, just reminding folks about the importance. We live in bear country, essentially. You may not think of Connecticut that way, but with this expanding population, it is definitely true. And so we have to act like it. People should never, ever, ever intentionally feed a bear. Whether, leaving out, food, donuts, something. You would not believe it, Jill, but it happens, and it's really, really dangerous. And
Yogi Bear wasn't a good example.
Pardon?
You shouldn't feed Yogi Bears, what you're telling me.
Do not. Don't do it. As excited as you might be about the prospect of, if you've seen a bear and you want them to come back, it's not a compassionate thing to do for bears. And there's a lot of unintentional feeding of bears that can happen. If you've got a bird feeder in your backyard, if you've got your garbage unsecured, or a grill that hasn't been cleaned, these are all things that can be attractive to bears as a food source. So it's really important to secure those things. If you've got a bag of dog food or cat food out on your screened-in porch, you may not think about that as a problem. But with a bear population that's losing that fear of humans, those are the kinds of things that can attract bears to come into homes, and that's something that we really, really need to avoid. So we just wanted to share that information about this trend that we're seeing as an opportunity to remind people about these kinds of practices that we need to do to keep everyone safe.
I'm gonna look around. I don't see any out here with me right now. So what do you recommend for families if they do see a bear? What should they do? Should they call deep? What steps should they take?
Right. So we do ask folks to report any sightings of bears to our wildlife division. The phone number for that is 860-424-3011. We've got a link on our website where you can also put in information to report a sighting to deep. That's, it's a positive thing. You can become like a citizen scientist when you report these sightings to us. It doesn't mean that we're going to go out and trap the bear or harm the bear or do something to the bear. We use that information to help us track how this population is expanding, especially to track any sightings of sows and cubs, which are an indicator of how the population is expanding. So that's really helpful information for our scientists to have. And but the first and foremost is to make sure that you're safe. So we encourage folks to make your presence known. Like if you see a bear when you're out hiking or camping, hiking groups, make noise, wave your arms so that the bear is aware of your presence. If you're out walking a dog, we've seen some circumstances this year of folks who are out, walking a dog. Keep the dog on a short leash because the bear could perceive the dog as a threat, and that could precipitate a conflict. So that's another really important one. Don't try to get close to a bear or go take a photo or video. Honestly, I know it sounds crazy, but it happens.
Well, I see it on Facebook. I see like they take pictures of it and it's posted right there. And in my head, I'm thinking I would be running, like I would be looking for cover.
Yeah, right. Yes. Well, don't run. You don't want to run or climb a tree. You want to, back away slowly, make noise. You want the bear to be aware of you and, don't try to approach it. Back away slowly. That's what we recommend. And then report it to DEEP so that we can continue to update our awareness about and our tracking of this population and share the word, with folks. I know as people talk about, this is like an interest. It's a complicated thing to communicate about, right? Because our wildlife biologists, our team here, they're in these jobs because they're fascinated by wildlife, just like our friends and neighbors around the state are. But what we're trying to do is promote that respect for bears and that awareness that this is an expanding population and we are living in bear country. And so we need to, educate folks about these kinds of practices because we're seeing bears in places that they weren't there 5 years ago, right? So it's kind of a new thing and we want people to be safe.
All right. Good advice. Again, if there's any questions, please post them in the comments and they will get them to us. Now let's move on to bugs. 3-year-olds, you must know all about bugs. Bugs and insects, hornets are this thing. We've heard about the killer bees. How's our state sitting with killer bees situation?
Killer bees, not so much. One thing that we are focused on every year is mosquitoes. Last year we saw an outbreak of triple E virus. It's hard to even remember that now that we're focused on COVID. We have a program here at DEEP. We work closely with the Ag Experiment Station and the Department of Public Health to make sure that we've got good management practices in place to help keep communities safe from mosquito-borne illness. I think that's one of the bigger challenges. But as far as bugs and bees overall, I mean, you might not be surprised that we're big insect lovers here at DEEP. And it actually, I have to say, one of the cool things that during the pandemic has been seeing people get really interested in pollinators and gardening and planting, pollinator-friendly plants. That's something we'd love to see. Actually, I did dig up half of our front yard. That was sort of like my pandemic, hobby project.
My pandemic project was our deck that we started in April and just finishing yesterday. So I get your pandemic.
Oh my gosh.
I think everybody has one. Yours will make your yard look beautiful.
That's great.
So do you want to talk a little bit maybe about fishing for families, camping in the upcoming fall?
Yeah.
How's COVID going to affect maybe those activities?
Fishing was another one way early in the pandemic. We had that question of like, oh my gosh, opening day of fishing season coming up in April. What do we do? Because it usually brings a lot of crowds of folks together. And we were concerned about that. So we opened fishing season early as a way to, not have everybody jammed up on that first day. And that was a huge success. I mean, again, if you think of all the things you can do to get outside in a way that's safe. Fishing is definitely one of them where you want some isolation, right? So we've seen a big increase in the number of people getting out and enjoying fishing. We have some incredible fishing spots all around the state, and that's been really exciting to see. And we're working on actually some reopening efforts to support some of our hunter education and hunter safety programs that we know are really important, especially for getting new hunters and youth set up with their hunting licenses so that they can enjoy that pastime. And camping, I'm so glad you mentioned camping. That's another one that our team worked really hard to put in some new positive practices around social distancing so that we were able to reopen camping season at the beginning of July. So we did a kind of a soft launch with RVs only just around the 4th of July weekend. And then based on that success, we are supporting camping, tent camping, RV camping across all of our campgrounds in the state. That's been really exciting. You know, in talking with the Department of Tourism, obviously a lot of folks have had to change their vacation plans for the summer, and people are, you know, taking staycations or vacationing much closer to home than they otherwise would. And it's been great to see, you know, again, through the Passport to Parks program, that, you know, $5 a year on the vehicle registration has been a lifesaver for us to be able to provide, you know, all of the different amenities that we need, the services, you know, especially with additional cleaning of bathrooms and personal protective equipment for our staff, so that we can provide camping for our folks here in Connecticut and visitors who enjoy our special, you know, spots in our state parks this season. And the reservations have been going like hotcakes. So that's been really great to be able to be part of providing that option for folks who are looking for ways to rediscover our beautiful state.
So we just had a question come in from one of our viewers.
Mhm.
What are the requirements for wearing a mask when camping in state parks?
Right. So I think that the basics are, like the governor says, if you have to ask, wear a mask. You know, even if you're outdoors, you should be wearing a mask. And we know that if you're with members of your immediate household, you know, and you're more than 6 feet away from anyone that you don't live with, you know, the mask isn't required. But going to the shower house, you know, the bathroom, when you're checking in, when you're talking to a park ranger, if you're interacting with another family or a group that's on an adjacent campsite, you need to have your mask on. So it's definitely now the you know, one of the most important pieces of gear we want everybody packing, not just bringing with them, but wearing when they're at campgrounds. And I think that's, you know, just there's a lot of different varieties I've seen of people wearing them. The neck gaiters. I find the surgical masks actually are the most breathable, which is really important in hot weather. It's been great too to see my kids get used to wearing them as well. They've got lots of different fun patterns, and getting those like softer straps for them, you know. Anyway, I feel like we've been learning like how to do this, and get everybody outfitted in the right way. And so I think this is just becoming part of the new normal. And it's great when you're wearing a mask, you know, you're doing it to help others. And it's like a really kind thing to do for our state and for our community and for the folks we live with. And so even though you're outdoors, we want folks wearing that mask as much as they can.
And what about extra sanitizing steps maybe when camping?
Mm-hmm. So one thing that's great, we are providing our picnic tables, for example. Bring a tablecloth. We aren't able to do, you know, disinfecting of picnic tables from group to group like you would see at a restaurant, perhaps. So we've been encouraging folks use the picnic table, but bring your own tablecloth. That's a really easy way to make sure that the surface is clean. Bringing extra soap and hand sanitizer is a great thing to do. And then our crews are providing cleaning on a frequent basis of those shower areas, of those bathrooms. And that's part of the service that we're providing this summer, and a way to keep people safe.
That's all great stuff. So I personally, my family, again, I have 4 children. They're all grown now. But at one point, they were all under the age of 7, I was telling you earlier. So I went to the beach a lot when they were younger, just because they outnumbered me, and it was a way to make them tired, and just, you know, those rosy cheeks after they come out, and they just feel so relaxed. And we've enjoyed camping as a family. Do you want to share a little bit about what your family enjoys doing outside?
Oh, we have been out hiking all the time. It's so great. And trying out different places. I think that's been the fun part. They like the variety. And so being able to, you know, you can go on Deep's website, and we have lists of all of our different parks. You could see pictures of what they look like. So depending on, you know, how old your kids are, you know, getting them engaged in picking different places has been really fun. we started this hashtag on Twitter and on Facebook and our Instagram page that is CT Trails Less Traveled. Because one of the things we're encouraging people to do is try out places they've never been before. And instead of picking those really popular and parks that can sometimes get, close to capacity, we're encouraging folks to get involved in trying out different parks. And so for my kids, City, we've been to Hurd State Park. That's another one that my family hadn't been to before, and we've enjoyed some great hikes there. Devil's Hop Yard is another one. Beautiful waterfalls there and great hiking opportunities. I mean, for my age group, my kids, like, they're in heaven when they can just find a body of water to throw rocks and sticks into. So I hear you completely. It's nothing, everybody's happy, they're totally engaged, they're totally engrossed. They're burning off steam. And when we get back in the car and are driving home, everybody is zonked out. It's like, that's a good day.
but it inevitably comes with that body of water. Is that we were somewhere with my niece this week, and she's like, I'm just gonna put my feet in. And in my head, I'm like, you're going to be up waist deep in that water. And sure enough, she was. And that's what kids do. But that's how they get that energy. And I think it's important for them to be outside.
Yeah. One thing that has been a challenge this summer is that we have not been providing for swimming at our inland state parks, only at the shoreline parks at this time. The reason we did that is because the beaches at those, not because it's dangerous or you might get COVID in a freshwater lake or something, but because the beaches in those inland parks are a lot smaller than they are at Hammonasset or Rocky Neck. So there's not as much room for people to space out. But we are working on, and we've been, working hard to see if there's a way for us to reopen some of that swimming opportunity. Because I know, like, with kids of my own, and I hear this from many community members, that it's hot out there, and having to drive all the way to the shoreline is tough, and with a lot of public pools that may be closed, it's really hard to look at a little face and say, no, you can't get in. So I want people to know we're working really hard to see how we can make that available and do it in a safe way.
Great. So here at the YWCA Hartford, our mission is to eliminate racism and empower women. And yesterday, we learned in your office that DEEP is engaging in issues surrounding environmental racism and justice. Can you share a little bit about that with us? What is environmental racism, and what inspired this type of involvement, and what is your office doing to address it?
Yes. So, Jill, this is such an important issue for our department. We have so much more that we need to be doing in this area. But it's a critical part of our mission. When we talked about air pollution and those disproportionate impacts of air pollution on communities of color around our state, that's a perfect example of environmental racism. So much of the impacts of energy infrastructure, of our waste infrastructure, and transportation pollution impacts tend to be concentrated in lower income and communities of color. And that is, it has been a challenge across generations. And we're eager to work with folks as we see this really resurgence and incredible community, outpouring of concern around racial injustice. I feel really called and responsible as the commissioner of this department to make sure that we're doing everything that we can within our diverse programs to be part of these solutions to help alleviate these burdens on communities and make sure that rather than being disproportionately impacted, that they are getting to disproportionately, benefit and ensure that they're getting equitable participation and the benefits of so many of the different solutions that our department can bring. So just some examples. Yesterday, it was a busy day. I was with the governor twice, actually, for two different events that both actually highlighted environmental justice and the things that we're doing at our department. One, first, we have a governor's council on climate change. that met remotely through Zoom. Hundreds of people who've been engaging and participating in that process, where we are working to develop solutions for our climate crisis. And we know that the impacts of climate change are disproportionately affecting communities of color. When you think about those neighborhoods that are vulnerable to sea level rise, when you think about with climate change, the increase in frequency of hot days where there's going to be poor air quality, communities that don't have access to air conditioning, that's a real health concern that is going to become more prevalent with climate change. And at the same time, many of the solutions that we're driving to reduce greenhouse gas emissions can provide really significant benefits. Like I mentioned, electric vehicles, or shifting from those dirtier diesel trucks to electric trucks. The governor signed on to a big regional initiative on that on Tuesday. That's going to have a really important benefit for those communities that are struggling with asthma. And so I think there's a lot that our department can do to look carefully about how as every time we are issuing a permit, or in the context of this climate policy, when we're engaging with communities about how we should be responding to climate change, it's really important that we're listening to those communities who have so much at stake and who have not been listened to as they should, over the past many years. And then the second opportunity I had with the governor, again, was highlighting his desire to move away from, or to, say the state shouldn't be subsidizing a trash incinerator in Hartford. As we know that is a great example of a power plant located in the Hartford region that's been impacting air quality and other pollutants on an environmental justice community. And I know the governor is really committed to find more sustainable solutions for addressing waste. And part of the reason for doing that is to recognize and respect the need to better protect communities of color and low-income communities that have been disproportionately affected by this type of infrastructure. So I'm just really proud to get to serve, under this governor. I know he's a real committed fighter on environmental issues, and environmental justice and racial justice has to be at the center of those solutions if we're going to get where we need to go. So those are just a couple of examples of where we've been working on this at our department.
How can families get involved with this initiative?
Well, lots of different ways. I'll just name a couple. I think first off, you might not think when you're throwing something in the garbage about the impact that you might be having on those communities that are living with a lot of this waste infrastructure. So recycling more, recycling better. Actually, we have a lot of debates in my house about, is this recyclable or not? And actually, we have a website called What's In, What's Out. So you can actually end your marital disputes by going online and looking it up. And we've got guidelines that tell you exactly what can go in and what can't. So recycling is one. Composting, another huge one. 20% of the trash that gets incinerated is actually food scraps that can get composted. And so those are simple things that people can do. If you want to improve air quality and help communities of color and impacted communities breathe easier and lower our asthma rates, think about bike commuting. Think about go test drive an electric vehicle. This is a great time to do it. And think about ways that you could change up your habits to reduce the amount of vehicle traffic that's out there. Those are things, people are asking a lot at this time, like, what can I do to be an ally? What can I do to help communities of color, help be part of eliminating racism in our state? And those are a couple of things that provide better environmental benefits for communities that have been disproportionately impacted. Getting an energy audit, if you go to Energize CT, that's another website that people can check out. So you can sign up to get a home energy audit and have folks come in. And again, you're going to benefit because you're going to lower your energy bills, but everybody's going to benefit by helping us over time shut down dirty power plants that are polluting our air, that tend to be disproportionately located in those environmental justice communities.
We have a viewer who wants us to thank you and the governor for taking action in North Hartford about the incinerator to protect brown and black families. So they appreciate the work that you and the governor are doing, and they wanted you to know that.
Thank you. It's really important. It's just the first step. It's going to be a long road for us to really transition away from those types of facilities. And we want to make sure that the transition is to something cleaner. And so we're eager to get the word out for folks about things they can do on composting and recycling. It is profound. If we can all do a little bit, it's amazing the impact we can have.
That's all great stuff. And I'm hoping we're catching all those resources. If not, we'll get them from your office so we can post them in the links later so people can
Awesome.
see them. But can you talk a little bit about your journey as being a woman in your position? You know, for young ladies who may be out there watching, can you share with us some of the challenges you've had in your career? And what advice would you give a teen or a young woman who's entering college or getting ready to graduate in this field?
I've been really fortunate to have, I guess, I don't know, maybe I think back, and I've always been a little bit of a stubborn person. So I think, having an older brother, I really always had that sense of like, well, how come I can't do that? Like kind of thing, going into it, and which has helped power me through. There are moments I will tell you, I've had them in this job and in just about every job that I've had, where you have that kind of imposter syndrome and think like, I'm not really supposed to be here, or somebody made a mistake, or, am I really, am I really, do I really belong, or do I really measure up? And I don't know, it's a little embarrassing to share that, but I share that on purpose because I think it's important for women to know, no matter where you are or what job you're in, or how, important the job may seem, or the title, those feelings happen. And it is a reflection of not having enough women, in these jobs and in these roles. But it's really important not to listen to that internal voice, and to pay attention at those moments when you're in a meeting and and you offer something and you realize, hey, wait, that was really good. Like, I think I got this. And finding ways to reach out and recognize and support other women. I think we don't do that enough. And I'm really excited, privileged to have a number of different women that I've hired as our deputy commissioners and in other roles. And I'm so proud of them. And it's really been a privilege to be able to support, women and just continue to affirm that they belong and that they have a place in leadership. And, I think that during the pandemic too, it's been interesting as a mom. I've had 3 maternity leaves, one when I was a deputy commissioner, or 2 when I was the deputy commissioner, and 1 when I was the chair of the utility commission. At the time, it always felt like, oh gosh, can I really do this? And it worked out. But inevitably, when you're trying to maintain this sort of professional, role, you tend to kind of keep the separation between what you're doing at home and what you're doing at work. And the pandemic has definitely stripped all of that away. I think about earlier this spring, I was doing like a presentation. There were like 100 people on this Zoom call. And I had the PowerPoint, and I dressed up, even though I'm at home, right? It was like, this is a big deal. And I told my husband, like, I just need an hour, right, without the kids around, so I can give this like presentation. I'm giving the presentation, and I hear a commotion kind of happening, and the door behind me, actually, this is like my dining room door, is starting to kind of wobble a little bit. I'm like, oh God, I'm like in the middle of a slide. All of a sudden the door busts open, and my 3-year-old runs in, and he's like, mommy, like, I saw a skunk in the yard. And it was like, okay, like, you can't,
at least it's along the theme of what you do, right?
Yeah. And it was like I couldn't help it. It was just like, oh my gosh, this is great. Like, this is what real life is. It's not pretending and putting on a suit while you're sitting in your dining room. People, this is your, we are moms and we are professionals, and in some ways it was a nice moment to say, that's okay. All the chat was filling up on the Zoom, like, oh, tell us more about the skunk, or that kind of thing. So I think in some ways, I hope something we'll hold on to from this time period is just being more accepting and of the dual roles that all parents are playing, and kind of lower our expectations for keeping these two things so separate in our identities. So that's been kind of refreshing. And but it's also something that I realized that these are expectations that society has, but also that we put on ourselves to keep these things separate. And I'm a mom as much as I am a commissioner, and it's this has been a time to model that as well. So
one of the things that I shared a lot with my friends, like I said, my youngest is going to be 22 in December, so I don't have any at home. But a lot of things that I share with my sisters and with my friends who had, they were trying to do both. I was like, I'm going to tell you something. Teachers wing it every day. Like, we have a plan, but there are days where there are complete meltdowns and we're not perfect either. So don't expect to be perfect. And I think that, you're right. As women, we have this thing that I have to be perfect. And we really don't. If we would all just be real, what a better place the world would be. So
it's true.
That's the push I've done. Let your expectations down. You know what? And my focus, I think, when I talked to a lot of people during this time was, your child's social emotional development right now is really what they need from you. The teacher can catch them up in math. They'll, the reading, it'll all catch up. But think about, this is, my children experienced 9/11, so this is this generation's 9/11, and they really need us there for social emotional. So, I think it's important that if we were all just real, like I went like this a couple of minutes ago. It's because my sister walked up on the deck. It wasn't a bear. It was my sister. But if we were real and just a little bit more transparent, I think that we would all be able to go, oh, okay, well, I'm not the only one that doesn't have it together.
Jill, that is so true. And it's a way for us to be, by being compassionate with ourselves, it helps us to be more compassionate with others. And, the other part of that whole working from home is that I've had some incredible conversations with my kids, even just stopping and talking to them about, well, how are you feeling about all this? Or what questions do you have? We've had incredible conversations, and that I think we both needed to have about what's going on. And the other aspect too, is that they've learned more about what I do. And, yesterday, I finished up a call and my daughter was like coming up, and tugging. I'm like, where can we go? When are you going to be done with all these calls? And I hung up, and then she said, something to me about, wow, she's like, you really like what you get to do, don't you? You like to do all these calls. And
I think it's important that your daughter sees that you love what you do. I think, I think it's important for her development to see that she gets to choose a career that she really loves.
That was the thing. She said, you really get to help people. You really get to help the planet. And she was, I don't know, it was very cool. We got to have this whole conversation about what my call was about. And so it wasn't just like, I'm distracted, I can't talk to you. It was really about, what are you doing? Why are you doing it? And, I don't know, finding those kinds of moments for connection and all of this, when we, again, no longer have the separation between work and family, I think has helped make me a better mom, and has been great for bringing, our family together. So you're finding those silver linings where you can, right, Jill?
Yep. Well, I want to thank you so much for being with us today. I've learned a lot. I've learned a lot about bears and bugs, and honestly, I've only lived in Connecticut for 3 years, so I've heard a lot about some different parks I can visit. But thank you so much for sharing so much of your life, your professional and personal life with us. We really appreciate it. We're going to ask you and our viewers to join us for our next YWLIVE Lunch and Learn. It's Thursday, August 6th. At 12:30, it's going to be our CEO, Adrienne Cochran, as she interviews our Lieutenant Governor for the state of Connecticut, Susan Bisowitz. So we invite all of you to join us. And then we also want to ask everyone to mark their calendars and save the date for the YWCA Hartford Region's in the virtual company of women, 25 years of inspiration on Wednesday, September 9th at noon. We're going to have a conversation with Cecile Richards, women's right advocate and co-founder of Supermajority. So those are all exciting things to look for. We've reinvented the way we do things here. So these are exciting things to look for. And we just want to encourage everybody. The YWCA Hartford region wants to continue to encourage everybody to stay empowered and safe and inspired. And remember, just like we've just talked about, we're all in this together. We're all having similar experiences, and be kind and remember that we're unlimited. Thank you so much, everybody, for being here today. Thank you so much.